was this thing in the corner next to the TV that my parents said it's for playing and recording movies. I saw this thing and I thought, well, how does it work? This sounds like heaven.
VHS tapes were so widespread and they were so common and so prevalent that I think for most people, they're just sort of part of the everyday background of your life growing up, or if you're an adult during that time frame, they're just something you had.
It wasn't until a little, maybe by 84 or 5 where everybody and their mother had the machines, because we had just enough Christmases to get the machines in everybody's home.
Video cassette got me, hooked on movies. I loved going to movies as a kid, but the VHS tapes, bringing those movies home, I could watch them anytime I wanted.
Getting us all together to go to the theater was a big deal, and it didn't happen very often. We had to get everybody in the car, we had to get there, pay, get popcorn and all that, so home video was the standard for me.
They opened in our neighborhood this video store, and it was called Pop and Go. And my mom is from Mexico, and she would call it Popingo. So she'd always say, oh, let's go to Popingo. And the popcorn was so good.
But I remember going and the giant cardboard cutouts of movies coming soon, and that's the first time I ever saw The Toxic Avenger in a giant cutout, and I was a little kid and I was like, I've got to watch this.
Back then it was huge. It was like the Friday night thing to do, and it was, you really kind of took your time thinking, because it was $29 to join, so it wasn't free to join.
So I'd spend my Saturdays, get on my little bicycle, my Ninja Turtles bicycle, and go from one store to the next, looking for this title, whatever it might be. And I remember specifically I really wanted to see Basket Case, and none of the video stores had it. And so for months I would go to everyone and be like, did you guys get Basket Case yet? I want to see Basket Case.
I saw Apocalypse Now was out, and I went, oh, I need that. And then I saw Blood Feast was out, and I went, oh my God, I need that. And I saw Beyond the Valley of the Dolls was out, oh my God, I need that. So I bought my first Betamax, with the top loader, with the big piano keys, and the remote was attached to a wire. So it really wasn't even a remote.
この頃レンタルビデオっていうのができてきだしたので、それで借りるようになって、私はジェニファー・コネリーがすごく好きだったので、彼女の作品をたくさん見てました。それも女優になりたいというきっかけだったかもしれない。
Well, video took cinema out of the movie theater. So, it takes a lot of money to build a movie theater. It takes a lot of seats. You just put the seats in. You have to get all the people to sit in the seats to make it, profitable. And so I think if you say worldwide, yeah, I think it was kind of like a democratization. It was a form of wider exposure.
It's Friday night, you're with your friends, you're having a sleepover, you're at the video store, you want to make each other laugh by finding the dumbest thing possible. I think that was a huge part of it, really. Sitting around with your friends, laughing, eating pizza, what is better than that?
It was a very special time where you could all of a sudden be introduced to all of this stuff that never would have been available, never would have shown on TV, never would have been in your movie theatre. Certainly in a place like Nottingham, where I was from, which is kind of a small city in England.
I grew up on 42nd Street, so I had access to movies the average person normally wouldn't have, unless, I guess, you live next door to a drive-in or something, So I loved the fact that I was seeing crap that no one even heard of. What surprised me was how much of that crap came out on VHS.
I'm very proud to say that I have 82 movies that start with Dead, Death, and Deadly. 82. So I've really made it. I'm really a great success in life.
Above you can see that I have my big boxes, my oversized clamshells, things like that. I have things alphabetical to keep things simple.
The way I've done it is color, because to me it looks the most aesthetically pleasing. I just did it in like a Roy G. Biv kind of way, and just came all the way down to black and white. I also do my books that way. And for me, it's a system that totally works. You can ask me any video and I can be like, okay, that one's green, and pick it out. And it's really easy for me, and I think it looks really nice.
This is one of my all-time favorites, though. Corey Haim, Me, Myself, and I.
So good.
I know Corey passed, and I love Corey. I'm not really even making fun of him, but this is the awesomest thing ever.
The direction in my life right now that I'm trying to, proceed with in the business is gradually from being the little boy from the younger, brother, trying to get to be the older brother or the only brother.
I don't know if this is the pride of my collection. This is the tape that I've got the most fun out of recently. It's called Bubba Until It Hurts.
It's for men and women. It's not just another pretty workout.
5, 6,
Unlike many exercise programs, Bubba Until It Hurts utilizes a minimum of jumping. The lack of jumping up and down makes this program ideal for apartment house dwellers. It's just like, why would you put that on your VHS? Like, why would that ever be a marketing point?
And at the end, he's like, now that you met my friends, let's get to work. I love you. He says, I love you. I love you. Now let's get to work. It's like, whoa, Bubba Smith, not until it hurts, please.
In order to get to it, you've got to go through it. I love you and welcome to Until It Hurts.
We have my favorite movie here. I have Heavenly Bodies, 3 copies of it. If you love aerobics, if you love Canadian features, this is exactly where you need to go. Rolling Vengeance, see, it's coming right at you there. It's even got a drill right in front because it's fucking badass.
This is one of my prized possessions, the Leslie Nielsen Bad Golf Made Easier, signed by Leslie Nielsen. I don't know if you can get in on the gold signature of the man himself.
Stand directly in your opponent's line and lean imperceptibly to one side or another as he tries to read the break.
And this is a movie called Death Rider. This is a shot-on-video Western, and it is really one of the most impossibly, hypnotically awkward things that you will ever see.
I thought you were dead, Clayton. No, that's my brother you're talking about.
And it's kind of a passion project by this guy, Ronald Kuntz, who is the lead actor, writer, director, editor, cameraman, and he prouds to the film. Probably my favorite proudster is Ronald Kuntz.
Now I'm getting into all the ones that I gasp about. The Windows 95 Easy Instruction Video Guide featuring Matthew Perry and Jennifer Aniston in character, because this was right when Friends started. So it's all this like, oh really? You click on the start window? That is pathetic.
When I first started, I was like, oh man, dude, I have 80 movies. It was just like phenomenal to me that I could like pick through 80 movies. But then I got to 500 and pretty soon I got to 1,000. Zombies, the cult, supernatural, slasher movies. I got a slasher closet over there. If there's at least 3 movies that I can categorize together, I'm like, okay, that can be a subgenre. So I have one right now. It's got 4 movies and it's about homeless horror. You get a job loser, you shit your fucking pants. So that's a little subgenre I have. I've learned a lot about culture in general just by doing all these little subsections. There's a lot of things you have to search out and a lot of things you have to look for, not even knowing what you're looking for, and you might find something that you never knew was out there.
The video revolution began in Japan in the mid-70s, early to mid-70s, when the engineers at Sony began to develop a tape format. And at the same time, the engineers at JVC, they developed their own.
Back then, you know, everything was Betamax, VHS. And so you went to a store, there was always both formats. Ridiculously, they used to charge $3 more for a VHS tape because you were buying more plastic.
Really nothing happened in any numbers until '79, when it began to explode. And both formats were originally head-and-head fighting for the supremacy. And it was sort of thought that maybe both could exist together, which proved not to be the case.
I, of course, bought Beta. So, you know, wasted all these zillions of videos that I bought in the Beta format. And, of course, Beta went bye-bye very, very soon after.
If you're looking at video cassette recorders and you're confused by all your choices, just look at the most important feature of all, the picture. And Sony Betamax records a sharper picture than VHS.
Beta was technically superior, but it had one huge flaw, which was that it was only 1 hour long. The VHS format was 2 hours long.
VHS video cassettes play longer, which can save you money. Big deal.
One of my closest friends is Robert A. Harris, the restorationist, and he was always talking about the latest technologies. He was keeping me alerted about the war between Beta and VHS and how the cheaper one was going to win because the public just doesn't give a shit. He was correct.
When I rented The Last Unicorn on Beta and stuck it in my grandmother's VHS player, that was not good. That's when I understood the difference between VHS and Beta, and knew I didn't like Beta because I didn't get to watch The Last Unicorn that night.
For any TV show, like, you know, any new show that's out right now, of course their goal is, well, this is going to be on DVD, it's going to be on Hulu, it's going to be watched forever and ever. But back then, they didn't really realize that.
自分の作品って当時はオンエアしたら終わりだったんですよ。テレビシリーズやってるけど、それをもう一回見たいと思うと見る機会がないので、当時はまだパッケージにして発売するっていう習慣もなかったから、自分の作品を保存しようと思ったら自分で録音するしかなかった。
Oh, and you missed your football on TV.
Anything for you, Mum.
Oh, you are a good boy.
Bye.
When you have a Philips television recorder, you don't have to miss anything. The Philips television recorder records TV when you can't watch. So you can replay anytime. The Philips television recorder.
Mums.
I don't think any member of the audience actually said, gee, I need a machine that will help me control my schedule. But once the machine was made, then they came up with the concept of time shifting, and that was a concept that really worked, that you could actually shift the TV schedule around.
They've made it so simple to use, the cat can operate it. Tiddles, I want you to record an ITV program at 10:30. Sony C6, so simple, the cat can use it.
The TiVo age only exists because we were raised with VHS, because we were the first generation that could be sent to bed with a promise, it'll be here tomorrow when you get up. That changed our relationship with television.
I discovered that I could program the VCR. That was like a big day, for me, like as a 9-year-old to get around the parental controls and tape R-rated things.
You can watch your TV shows when you want to watch it. That's the advertising campaign that really pushed Betamax to the top of the heap and was a big success for 2 years until VHS caught up with them, with an even better reason to buy it because they could record longer.
Oh, it's over 3 hours. Relax. Panasonic VHS takes up to 4 hours of sports, movie specials on one cassette.
VHS used that to actually win out in the format war with Sony.
At a certain moment in time, people were like, I don't like that you can share this thing with people. I want to control the mechanism of distribution, only programmed on television, right? Only available in movie theaters. So when the VHS tape comes out, for a ton of the people involved on the manufacturing side, it's a watershed, but there's people in content and distribution before everyone has decks and they can monetize it. They're like, I don't know if this is a good thing or not.
So this whole notion of selling something where you lost control entirely was a new notion and made major movie studios very, very nervous. Box office kept increasing. So it's not like people are staying home and avoiding the movie theaters. It's a new bunch of people are putting new money into home video, and that's what's really driving this incredible explosion of the film industry in the 1980s.
The guy who financed Brain Damage for me was a man named Andre Blay, and he's credited with starting this. He had a company in Michigan called Magnetic Video that was dealing with mainly 3/4-inch tapes for industrial use. And he got the idea one day, wow, I wonder if I could put Hollywood movies on half-inch.
When I made the decision to buy movie rights, I said, well, I got to go to all the Hollywood studios. And I wrote them a letter saying that the home video revolution is about to begin, and I could help start this new industry.
So he writes a letter to all the major studios about, come on, give me a film. I'll put it on tape. We'll see what happens.
And no studio was interested. They thought it was a crazy idea. They thought it was a stupid idea. They thought it would devalue the films, blah, blah, blah. But Fox said, yeah, fine, let this guy do it. If he fails, he fails. Who cares? We'll get some money out of it.
This is pre-Star Wars, so 20th Century Fox was probably a company that's not doing that well. In any case, they hedged their bet. They gave him films that were at least 4 years old.
Sound of Music and, Patton and all that stuff. And they sold for an exorbitant rate. They were like $89, $99.
The only world we recognized was getting our films into theaters. Charlie Mann was the only one in our circle that was thinking about the home video market.
So what I did was I thought, well, let me go find or license the rights to other successful independent films. Even my lawyer had no real idea of how to write the document because no documents had been written prior to license these video rights. What is the territory? What is the price? No idea. It was a pioneering time because nothing existed.
Next step, let's not sell them the pre-recorded tapes. Let's actually rent it to them.
Andre never anticipated the rental market. And he said he remembers the day he got a phone call from a store saying, hey, can I rent this? And he went, no. The store said, well, my lawyer said I can. I was like, oh, no, So that started it. And the punchline to Andre's story was eventually all the studios saw how lucrative the market was. They all came out with their own, label, except for Fox, of course. So Fox had to buy Andre out. They had to buy. So he, whatever he bought it for, boy, he quadrupled that, okay?
The video at that point was kind of taking over for the drive-in circuit. Video was the new market for the kids to rent the horror films or the films that they wouldn't see at the mainstream theater.
Well, I definitely don't think that my career would have gone where it had without video. My movie was released in all kinds of foreign countries on video. If it wasn't for video, for me, I know my popularity would be much, much smaller than it is now.
When video cassettes first came in, we jumped in. We loved it. We thought it was great. And in fact, it was great. And there were mom and pop shops, there were video stores opening up all over the country, all over the world that needed movies.
In the early days, the appetite for video was so pervasive. People could pick the wrong location. They could pick the wrong video cassette titles. They could hire surly staff. They could have terrible hours and horrible policies, and people were still gravitating to these stores. It was just, there was such a hunger for it.
誰も中身を見て変わってないんで、要するにその絵だけあの頃の香港映画って絵描いてこういうレッド忍者対ブルー忍者みたいなタイトルでもう絵しかなかったんで中身誰も見てないんですよ。それで買ってきちゃってじゃあ千葉お前見とけって言って初めて僕がその映画を見に行ってでその中身が全然違う映画のところに忍者映画のシーンを足して最初と真ん中と最後だけ忍者が出てきてあとは全然違う映画っていうような映画がたくさんあってなんだこれは本当にこんな映画買って日本で出していいのかなっていう。
So the idea of having movies that were at your disposal and when you wanted them was kind of remarkable. And there was no talk of picture quality or aspect ratio or any of that. It was just availability.
So you had to kind of be aware that as much as you want to use that frame right to the edge, you wouldn't. You'd kind of give yourself a little cheat on either side because you knew that when it went to video, the edges would be cut off.
I looked at a few of them. I was appalled at the improper aspect ratios and the lack of rich contrasts and resolution, and never did buy one, and predicted they wouldn't catch on.
Original aspect ratio never caught on because people thought they were being gypped. I got black bars on the top and bottom of my picture. Yeah, that's so you see the sides. That never sunk in. Now I know people that have the widescreen TVs, so if they watch Casablanca, they zoom in on it to fill up the picture. I don't get it.
Sometimes it looks better than the widescreen. If you get the VHS of Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid, it's horribly pan-scanned and like they zoom in times. But it's got this interesting aesthetic to it, which I like, and actually prefer that. You can't make that camera movement with a camera, like it only exists in however they use to make the pan and scan. So when you saw stuff like that, you just thought like that was a weird camera movement. I enjoy pan and scan. It doesn't bother me. I don't like it when it's completely cropped, like where they just cut it off, where they just don't give a shit. They just cut the left and right off, and then the stuff's missing. Or when they smush it, I don't like that. But I like that weird, the weird ones where it moves back and forth. I think that's pretty good.
Oh, fantastic. Closer. The warmth, the wetness. Unbelievable. This is what it's all about. This is heat. This will make me famous.
We got to talk about the VHS movement. And I've been lucky. I've been here at all the innovations. I've been here at all the changes. We went from a qualitative media to a quantitative media. The video concept made it easier, but did it make it better? I don't know.
70年代全般っていうのはそのアダルトビデオもほとんどが例えばビデオ商品そのものが高額であったのでやっぱり大手しか参入できない、市場だったんですけれども80年代に入ってそのホームビデオのフォーマットが VHS とかベータになってくると機材も非常に安価になってきたので、インディペンデントの会社も入ってこれるように。
It was the very tail end of the theatrical distribution, and it was more of video stores were just popping up all over. So you had a lot of independent adult bookstores. And business was thriving.
The video boom came out of the facility to watch this material at home and no longer have to be ashamed, theoretically, to go to a theater. And I knew that once this door was open, it would never be closed.
Why don't we make the teddy bear come sit by me?
No, I got a better idea. Why don't you come over here? Pardon me, Teddy.
Ohioで初めて一人暮らしをして一番最初に買った家具というか家電がテレビと VHS のデッキなんですよ。それはやっぱりアダルトビデオを一人で見たいからなんですけど。
Any major consumer electronics medium, its success or failure in the market will be determined based on its relationship with the adult entertainment business. And I think VHS is where we learn that.
ベータと VHS って出たじゃない最初に。それでVHS の方は藍染京子さんのエロ V をつけたんですよね。1本つけて売ったんですよ。そしたらこっちバーンと売れてソニーの方はダメだったんですよね。やっぱエロの力はすごいと思って。
I like the way film looks, But I think that video probably makes the end consumer feel like he's a part of the experience.
家庭用ビデオで撮った姿で AV が作れればいいなとは思ってるんですけど、そのなんていうんですかね、その人の生活の中のその記録として残しているものの中にもちろん生活の中にセックスがあるわけだから、そうやって撮れれば一番ベストだと思いますね。さあ撮影しますよっていうんじゃなくて。
What video did change about the porn industry was the idea that since we're distributing on video, we can shoot on video, change the economics of that business, and made the business so much bigger than it had ever been before.
What if we took these big boxes, in their trays, and made them smaller, and maybe even we could attempt to sell them in alternative markets like airports or bookstores, and they were selling like hotcakes, and the business took off, and that's how we created the sell-through title.
Media had this crazy idea of releasing tapes at the then shocking price of $19.95. They were calling it sell-through. Every other company was going, oh, it's a stupid idea. It's ridiculous, because they thought the more money it would cost, the more money you'd make. But I thought, gee, I wish they'd sell Basket Case for that. Because it would be the only film like that, a disreputable, unrated, blood and gore film out on the market. And teenagers, which were my core audience, they couldn't afford $49.95, but they could all afford $20. Media thought it was a terrible idea. They thought it was such a bad idea. They said, look, we'll do it, but if it doesn't move, we're going to go right back to the regular price. By the time Halloween came around, my God, Basket Case was everywhere. We made a fortune. It did spectacular. I mean, I bought this apartment. This was my down payment that I needed from the bank to buy this apartment. And suddenly the sell-through market was born. I'd like to think Basket Case had a lot to do with that.
It was great for independents because the major studios really caught on very slowly to video. And there were so many examples of independent films that were brand new to that audience that were more desirable than the big studio film. So many times, those little pictures would outperform just in terms of video, not theatrical on TV and other deals that were happening. But when it came to the video market, in those early days, it was incredible.
It's the return of cult hero Freddy Krueger. And for the past 2 summers, Freddy's Nightmares have been the nation's top video rental titles. Now, it's Freddy's 3rd time around, and he's all set to claw his way beyond the 200,000 mark.
With the advent of home video, it also made companies very successful, very small companies very successful. And I think that's largely why we have so many insane VHS oddities now, is because there would be a huge Hollywood movie that would hit, like Indiana Jones or Friday the 13th, and you would get a whole plethora of films that were aping that made for 12 cents.
Production price tag, Terminator, $80 million, Puppet Master, $400,000. It's like, it's not an even playing field, but on the video store, they're all on the same shelf, they're all in the same size boxes.
Look, if idiots like Troma can make a movie that sells millions and millions of dollars of video cassettes, well, then anybody can do it.
Distribution was handled very differently. There were a lot more distributors. There were people that were willing to experiment in home video. It was so new that it felt like the Wild West. It felt like anybody could get a foothold and be a major player in VHS distribution.
I was approached by a couple of producers who wanted to produce a video which would go straight to home video. And this was something new. My idea was, I'll create an electronic aquarium. People found this intriguing, that here was this new thing that used this new medium that had been created. What really, I think, caused the early explosion in video was Jane Fonda's workout tape.
Hey, that counts a 4. Heels 4. And then 4.
So this was a tape that did something original, which was gave you an opportunity to exercise in your home, in front of your TV by yourself. Don't need to go to a gym. It was a very good concept. And it had never really been done before.
Well, the early days of video, it was a seller's market. It was great. I mean, they couldn't get enough. This was a worldwide explosion. And there was a window where, if you made a clever movie and it was relatively well done and it was in the right genre, it was an action film or horror or sci-fi, you would make some money.
So it was Toei, which is one of the traditional major studios in Japan, that sort of launched this straight-to-video market. Whereas in the US, largely video for a very long time was sort of demonized by the traditional studios.
我々はもともと東映というのはフィルムメーカーですから、そういった部分のDNA も持ってますんで、その新しくできたそのレンタル屋さんに向けて、商品を提供できないかっていうことがもともとのこの V シネマっていうここについてかな、V シネマっていうタイトルをつけた理由でもあって、ビデオ用の専用映画このクラムハンターというタイトルが、V シネマの まあ、第1号作品になったっていうことですね。こんなに出るんだっていうことがびっくりでどんどん作っていこうっていう話になって
V シネマというものが登場して低予算でたくさんの映画を作るっていう環境がもう一回与えられたんですね。ここで僕たちは仕事がもらえたし、俳優もスタッフも本数を重ねることで場数をたくさん踏むことで自分たちの技術を鍛えることができたんですね。
Vestron Video, they were very aggressive. If you had a movie and you went to some place like AFM, the American Film Market, or Cannes, and the video rights for your movie was not yet locked up, almost immediately you would be visited by a salesperson from Vestron saying, here's $1 million right up front, give me the movie.
In the initial stages, you would go into a store and find something that you wanted. You wouldn't see a commercial, you wouldn't read anything in the magazine or newspaper. I mean, it was just that new. All these stores were opening up and they needed to fill the shelves with new titles. So there was this huge demand. It didn't matter if they were good or bad.
You have a pretty flourishing industry that's based on renting videotapes, 30 to 35,000 video rental stores across the country, most often mom and pop operations.
Charlie would have title contests for his employees. And if you came up with a title that he used, you'd get $500. So everybody would come up with 10 or 15 titles, and he would narrow it down to like 100, and then he would commission box art. And then Austin First would come in from Vestron. He would just come into the room and he'd go around and say, I'll take that one, and that one, and that one, and that one. And then Charlie would bring the writers and directors in and say, I want you to do this one and that one.
That was an era of great equivalency of video stores. I think people would rent anything with a cover that interested them. And it wasn't about studio, it wasn't about movie star, it wasn't about budget. When you're looking at a shelf, it's very democratic. The best cover catches your eye.
One thing I do is go to video stores whenever I'm in them and I find the movie and I pick it out and I put it, flat so it's facing front. A little extra advertising, can't hurt. I really do. I'm like looking around, seeing nobody looks at me.
A lot of them I picked just on the cover art. Malone! That's a cover buy. Have I watched it? I'm not going to lie to you and tell you I've watched this movie, but if this happens somewhere in it, then it's a good movie.
Also, there's something to be said about something so large. You could kill a small child with this. Like, you could bludgeon somebody to death with this.
That was a handful when you bought one of those. And it left a lot of space for a really good artist to actually create something that in itself was a work of art.
When you did a major film, it was fun to see it. It's the kind of job that a lot of illustrators at Generation love to do.
It used to have a battery, and you'd press the button, and then Frankenhooker says, "Want a date?" Because that's one of her catchphrases in the movie. Want a date? She's a Frankenhooker.
I have the box, but it doesn't work anymore. But it was this talking box, and you press here, and you'd hear a voice go, "Want a date?"
When you push the button on the box, she goes, "Want a date?"
It was obsessive. You just sat there, "Want a date? Want a date? Want a date? Want a date?" When this was in the stores, that's all people were doing. Want a date? I think the talking box did more to sell the movie than the movie did.
If you only see one movie this year, it should be Frankenhooker. Of course it should be. I mean, you see things that are like, wow, this box art is not selling. And especially being a buyer for as long as I have, I can really look at stuff and go, this box art will sell this movie.
Looking at those 2000 Maniacs, just the blood coming out of the mouth, or the Color Me Blood Red with the women just totally splayed, just with their guts hanging out. I was just like, that is for me.
People have a certain amount of nostalgia for kind of old VHS stuff, and some of it was pretty great. Most of it was awful, I mean, if you're objective about it.
There are terrible, unspeakably bad movies that have some of the best covers I've ever seen. I admire the fact that those companies figured out, man, all we got to do is wrap it nicely.
This was ultimately used as a video cover for Chevy Chase Funny Farm. Sometimes it's just the simpler image that read better.
It was a great way for so many artists to make a living, and there was a lot of great art produced, especially during the 70s and 80s.
We would fight to get our name in there, and some would allow it, and others would take it out, and so we'd kind of hide it in somewhere. My name is in the hair. If you turn it upside down and have a look at it, you'll see it.
When somebody does like a kind of a cheap, fast Photoshop, here's a bunch of floating heads, buy it because these actors are in it. Like, that artwork isn't going to move the needle at all.
I don't know what happened. I mean, they actually used to use color.
I don't see color all that frequently. It's like they're designing shit for dogs.
I think that everyone forgot how awesome a painted cover is with a dude with a shirt off holding a machine gun. Why would you take a photo of that when you can paint a beautiful portrait of it?
That's the stuff that's going to keep it out of the mainstream. You know, the big box stores don't want that. They don't want that painted artwork.
The amount of work I was getting from the movie studios really started to slow down in the early 90s. Then all of a sudden they said that I had to learn how to do it on the computer or they couldn't use me anymore. Once I mastered the tool of the computer, then I was able to create what I did before, maybe even a little bit better.
Don't give me art. I can't stand art. The worst covers on the planet, Criterion. I'm sorry, guys. They're the most boring covers ever made. How could you not want to see this? How could you not want to own this? Thank God. You know, this is, you want it? What? This is the cover. Yeah. You know, Criterion, go fuck yourself. This is how you sell it.
So by 1986, home video is giving as much money to Hollywood as the box office. And it's all new money. 20th Century Fox is bought up by the News Corporation. Paramount is bought up by Viacom. Very interesting, because of home video, you actually have Sony, an electronic manufacturer, deciding never to lose a format war again. And the way to do that was to buy up a film studio, so they bought Columbia. So by the 1990s, you have a new landscape of media conglomerates. Then they represented that film was switching over to a major brand. You can spin off from film into many different markets with the sales of videos, music, toy action figures, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
You know, we're down now to the same basic 5 or 6 corporate pipelines that supply almost all of our media. And unfortunately, they're not voracious enough to sort of reach outside their own catalogs. So you don't have that sort of hunger in the marketplace anymore.
Blockbuster came in and they took over. You know, they really got rid of all the mom and pop chains. Its name says it all. It was about blockbusters. That's all they were interested in.
Video rental is gone. You know, that was the dominant way of seeing films, you know, 20 years ago, and it's dead.
Even though we lost all that, yes, we have the internet, which is awesome. I'm not going to say that the internet isn't great. It's incredible. Like, it's in some ways, it's almost worth it. Yeah, there's definitely a sense of loss, of course, I think. But it's awesome to see the places that are still around, like Cinephile, Hot Obsession, Scarecrow, iHeartVideo, Vulcan. They're still going strong.
This is our videotape costume that we have someone who gets in and jumps around during the trivia contest that we do. And it's pretty easy to get on. You just slide it. Something like this, and he jumps around like that. We were thinking of hiring some guy to like just be on the sidewalk and just waving at people, but nobody wants to do that for minimum wage.
What VHS had, because it dominated for so long, was just an appetite. They had to fill those shelves. They had to have new product out. And so distributors reached deep into their catalogs, and they had to. And that was exciting. That was, I think, the greatest era of discovery. VHS had an unusually long life for a home video format. And I think that is something that we'll never see happen again. We'll never see Blu-ray dominate the market for 15 years. It just won't happen.
When I first started, it was like, I'm a college grad, you know, I've had a business and now I'm going to work in a flea market. And when people would ask me in church or whatever, what do you do? I sell movies at the flea market, you know, and it's like, ugh.
The funny thing about digging through all of Wayne's stuff at the house is that there's no separation whatsoever between like genres. Basically, you'll have like the Brave Little Toaster and then Enormous Wangs of the Northern Yukon or whatever, and they're just like right next to each other because they're both oversized boxes. That's a great film. You should check that one out.
We're the picture show, been here since 1990. Got lots of customers that were kids, would come in, their parents would buy them kids' movies, are now married and bringing in their kids. So that's the biggest thing that keeps me going. And so I have people coming in, most of them over 55 or 60, that still like VHS, still buy VHS, that's what they want. And then young guys like you, who are collectors and they want the old stuff and they want to get into all that. This is a typical VHS buyer, kind of low class.
It's going to be about a donkey named Paco. He'll steal your heart and your wallets. Wayne charges a lot for his VHS. Like, you know, way more than anyone else in America probably charges for their VHS. It's like a flat rate of like $9 if he likes you, $10 if he doesn't. And there's no way on earth that Paco is worth $9. He actually is stealing my wallets.
You got to have the real movie people.
The people that know you can't get this stuff on
Yeah.
Netflix or whatever.
And those people are fewer and fewer. I've just kept on keeping on.
But you have a personal fondness for VHS, I'm sure. I mean,
Oh, sure. Yeah, I still watch VHS. And if I got a choice to watch something, I've got all this new stuff around here, but I'll still end up watching an old movie. You know, to me, it's like an old friend. We display about 17,000 titles on VHS. We display about 12,000 titles on DVD. Probably up there, I have another 15,000, 20,000 duplicates. And around here in the two rooms, I probably have close to another 50,000 VHS.
So that's over 100,000?
50, 60, 70, yeah, probably at least 80, 85, maybe. And I don't really know. I'm not counting them.
This is the video room inside Wayne's house, which is like total chaos. Like the earth has vomited up, 12 video stores.
You do the best out in the country. You don't want to be in town. You're fighting all the Best Buys and the Walmarts and on and on. Up there, I'm the biggest movie thing to a lot of people coming in from a 40 or 50 mile radius. We can talk intelligently about 90% of the movies up there, and we've probably seen 3% of them. If you don't know, then you go, I hear it's a good movie.
Right.
Or, yeah, that's a pretty good movie.
Are you ever honest and say, I hear it's terrible?
No. That's absolutely a no-no. And,
even if
it's a pretty box. Look at the box.
Even if it sucks.
Well, most of it you've just heard people tell you it sucks, but you don't know it because I haven't seen it. Nothing was more depressing to me than to wake up on January 1st and know exactly what you're going to make for the whole year. I want to at least have the possibility of making 50,000 or making 10,000. But at least I don't know. It's still out there.
This VHS home video system has every single function you will ever need. It was made by JVC, the people who invented VHS. A home video system so advanced it's used in more sets around the world than any other. But the best invention we've ever come up with is our cordless remote control unit, which puts every function of the machine itself into the palm of your hand.
VHS came out and the rewind button was introduced. It just that was pretty much revolutionary for filmmakers because you could just easily, with the press of the button, just go back and constantly rewatch how Tom Savini stuck an arrow through someone's chest. You could go back and pause it and look at it closely.
Also understand and dissect the structure of editing because usually, editing is designed often to be very seamless, and you could figure out how shots would be put together to create a flow and an effect in a gag, especially, or a stunt. It's really increased the ability for people to understand the language of film.
レイディアンっていう映画が大好きで、何度も見たんだけども、どういうふうにカットが並んでるかっていうね、コンテっていうんですけど、それを、思い出しながら一生懸命書いてたんですよ。記憶しとくしかなかった。それを一生懸命また紙に写してっていうふうなことをずっとやってたんですけど、ビデオが出てからいつでも見れるようになるけどね。で逆にね、なんていうんだろう、やらなくなったっていうね。
VHS kind of, I think, taught a lot of people about the nature of film, the nature of editing, the nature of sound, and how those things matter. Not on purpose, but on accident. Like, oh, okay, so this tape is falling apart. Well, why is it doing that? Oh, because it's a physical medium. Oh, why is that? Oh, because it's just magnetic oxide stuck to a tape in a predetermined pattern. Oh, okay.
Instead of having stacks of film books, we had stacks of VHS tapes. That's what helped us discover our love for cinema. It's what inspired us to go out and start shooting our own movies. And I remember even cutting my first films on 2 VHS players.
Everyone had a VHS deck in their house in the 1980s. That was, everyone that I knew did. So you record something, you put it on a VHS tape, you can share it with everybody.
You could just leave the camera running. And you were also aware that it was easy to record sound. So that was really revolutionary. And for someone who was raised on home movies, on film, the idea of video was almost magical. It felt like this was too good to be true.
Think about film history classes, Film 101, whatever university you've been in, whatever high school. The first films you looked at were the Lumiere films. You've got a train coming into a station. You've got factory workers leaving a factory, and you're feeding a baby. These are the canonical titles of early cinema that every textbook has, and they are home movies.
I made my first feature on VHS when I was 12. I would dress up my brothers in like a gorilla costume, or we made fake Guts that came out, or we did a fake episode of Cops. It's mostly unwatchable. It's mostly deeply embarrassing.
Papa was a Rolling Stone. Yes, he was. It was a Rolling Stone.
Before that, it seemed like, well, making a movie is like this whole different thing. There's no way that you could ever do that. That's what people in Hollywood do. But then when I figured out you can just get a video camera, just make this movie, and then you can show it to your friends like the next week, that was so exciting. And then I was kind of hooked.
Dumb, I'm bored. waste of time.
But I think it was the fact that it was so accessible. It was the fact that it was universal. It's like, all right, well, let's go skate. And I'm just going to bring the camera with me. It wasn't like this whole production.
You know, and I think in the grand scheme of things, we'll understand that there was the invention of film and that became domestic at one point. But that distinction between what was 8mm film and what was home video, I think was just this weird, you know, maybe 20-year blip in our evolution.
I was 10, saw the movie when it first came out, and really was overcome by just Indiana Jones, the character himself, and the world that he inhabited. You know, being a single kid and kind of nerdy, you know, I wanted to create worlds for myself. That was my motivation, and then getting together with my friend Eric Zala, we wanted to recreate this Raiders film. And of course, when you have a passionate idea, you find the tools to do it. Eric had more of a drive to see a shot-for-shot remake of Raiders in its entirety. I think for myself, maybe it was that idea, but I think for me it was more like, I just want to play Indiana Jones. We worked from memory for the first 3 years. Video stores weren't as readily available. You just couldn't get stuff. And so you were left to your own to go back to the theater and see the film again. We bought the comic book. We bought the script that was published. We bought fan magazines. I snuck a tape recorder into the movie theater just to get sound effects and ended up getting thrown out. And then when the film came out on Laserdisc in 84, 85, we watched it and realized we were pretty close. The whole 7-year project, really, we just did it for ourselves. But there's a nostalgia there for this generation of filmmakers that were teaching themselves on Betamax. I mean, that could be something as simple as setting up your Barbie dolls, you know, or that could be something as complicated as wanting to remake Raiders of the Lost Ark in its entirety.
VHS will always have a historical place because it was the first way in which images were circulated and duplicated in a cost-effective way. There were not the economic constraints that were associated with image making before. That's revolutionary.
I remember renting some of those sort of low-rent titles in the mom-and-pop video stores, but then you would get them home and they would have this look like, this doesn't look like a real movie. This doesn't look like a real film. It kind of looks like TV news or something, and you would get like a shot-on-video movie that would give every appearance of being a real movie, but it wouldn't be.
Wake up, bitch!
There's something about like watching something shot on video. It makes you feel, for me, it makes me feel more like I'm there. Like it feel there's more of like a voyeuristic thing because like you associate it with home movies, and so then when you see a movie made on video, you kind of get this feeling like you're seeing something that maybe you weren't supposed to.
Everybody was like, you know, you got to shoot on film. What are you doing? You can't shoot a feature on video. I'm going to take my time with this. We're going to treat this like a movie. Just the fact that it's being shot on Super VHS-C is going to be irrelevant.
Sledgehammer, they made it on VHS for VHS, and I think, as far as I know, it's the first one like that. And made with a sense of professionalism, like maybe this is the new way.
I was here in Ohio doing it. Guys like Tim Ritter were down in Florida, you know, doing the same thing, and he was going door to door to video stores. But eventually you had guys that cracked the nut at Blockbuster and were getting stuff on Blockbuster store shelves.
The unprofessional quality of the shot-on-video movies, to me, is what makes them beautiful and makes them, I don't know, it's weird. It's like they were trashy back then, but now there's an artistic quality.
Despite being an ex-boxer and Marine, The Rock finally succumbed to the vicious, relentless, bloodthirsty, unyielding, resilient Devil Ant.
And have you seen the giant horny toad monster attack you? And the Devil Ant. And I make monster comedies. I've been doing it since 1990, and I've been making monster movies ever since. My plot is I got a monster out there, and he has to be destroyed. He has to be stopped. That's the plot of my movie. They call Detective Rock to stop the monster, you know. But who always doesn't believe in the monster?
Hello.
Yeah, Detective Rock.
Hello.
Rock. Rock.
Hello. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, what?
Ozzy's dead.
Hey, man, I'm trying to eat, man. You know, you shouldn't be calling me this time. You shouldn't be interrupting me, man.
Ozzy's dead.
What? Greg Ozzy Ozimek is dead?
Yeah, bitten by Devil Ant.
Get bitten by a devil ant?
Yeah.
Oh, come on, man. It's an old wives' tale, and you know it.
I know. And it's got a lot of comedy in there, and got a lot of action, like monsters battling people, a lot of victims. And then at the end of the movie, the monster gets killed or he gets stopped or whatever, thrown in jail or something.
This is a person who has, like, just one day sat down and decided, I am going to improve the world with absolutely no financial support and no critical support from anybody, and I'm going to make this my life's mission.
He is like a living embodiment of a middle finger in the face of everybody who ever told you that you cannot do what you want to do.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome David "The Rock" Nelson.
I'm going to get you my devil hand if you don't watch this movie by The Rock. I was a door-to-door dictionary salesman from 87 to 91. So that sort of helped my sales, you know. It taught me how to sell to people, you know. And after that, after I was let go, I started selling my movies in 93. I went door-to-door with my monster movies. I have interviews. I have an introduction. I show movie trailers. So you're getting a full-length movie. It's like 2 hours. Plus you get previews. Plus you get a long intro by me, flexing my muscles and stuff. I'm going to show you. Look.
Show it.
Look.
The Rock's got it. Show him. Yeah, 1.
I drink like 4 glasses of milk a day.
3.
And I eat good. I get my protein, you know, a beef patty with some rice and maybe some veggies or a small salad. And every day I have like a banana or an apple. You know, get my fiber, get my fruit. So, you know, all natural bodybuilding. I never took a steroid. It's all natural, bud.
46, 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, 52. Ladies and gentlemen, David "The Rock" Nelson!
Are you jealous of my body? Are you jealous of my body? Yeah. See, the thing is, I got enough footage for like 100 movies right now. I'm always filming stuff. And I film so much stuff that I forget where everything is. So a lot of times I have to reshoot something if I want it. It takes too long to fast forward, rewind to find that. So I say, I'll just do it over again. And it turns out pretty good the second time.
Go ahead and stab the knife in my chest, Sodom. Go ahead, right in my heart.
Why not? I got ideas coming out of my head, man. I'm 55. And what's wrong with you guys saying you're old when you're like my age or younger? You're not old. Don't tell me, oh, I'm 48. I'm getting too old for this. And you're just a kid. Get motivated. You know, some of you say, oh, you got to do it digitally. Yeah, digital smigital. I don't need a computer to make a movie I never have. I just shoot the dang thing. If you got a video camera, stick a blank tape in that machine and film the dang thing. Quit making excuses. Well, I don't have all this money. I need a budget so I can buy all this digital equipment. Use what you got. Well, I didn't go to film school. I don't know if my movies are going to be good enough. Don't worry about it. Just listen to your heart and you do it. You take charge of your own vision. And don't worry what other people think. And don't let your mom talk you out of making monster movies. I told my mom, my mom said, David, I wish you'd grow up and do something else more constructive with your time. I said, Mom, you can't stop me from making movies because you know I'm going to do it anyway.
The infamous glitch that all video store owners know. When you're watching a movie and there's a glitch and you're like, oh, it's going to get nude in 2 seconds.
Here's a newsflash. Nudity was gigantic with teenage boys. It was a big thing back in the 80s.
Watching a videotape as a kid, and when you could start to see the lines rolling through the picture, you know that someone's watched it a lot at that point, and you know that there's going to be tits coming on soon. You get ready. You sit up in your chair because you think, holy shit, some fucking weird pervert has watched this part so many times that I'm ready for the money shot.
When you watch a VHS tape, there's almost like a archaeology that you can do on it, where there's this history written into the physical material of the thing itself. You get to see the parts that are really beat up. You know that someone like rewound that and watched it over and over. It's like the part where there's boobs or the part where the guy explodes. And you know that was someone's favorite part, and they couldn't get enough.
That was the first, I think, anybody ever had the power over being able to see boobs again and again and again and again and again. Cable had been a reality in our lives, so you could see boobs, but they were gone, and they were just a golden memory.
I had a videotape of Kentucky Fried Movie, and I lent it to a friend, and when he gave it back, it was like just every 10 minutes or something, I would just go flip, 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 and I'd be like, you watched all those nude scenes over and over again in one weekend, because now my tape is ruined, but it's also kind of funny, and whenever I watch it, I can think of you being gross and hilarious.
My Ghostbusters tape, I bet people can't even make out the whole scene where he goes, I came, I saw, I kicked some ass, because I thought that was the greatest shit ever when I was a kid. I rewound that scene, I was like, whoa, he kicked some ass. That is what Ghostbusters do.
We had a guy at one of our video stores that I worked at where we eventually had to cancel his membership because we figured out it was him, but his hobby was renting children's movies and then splicing in pornography in the middle of them and returning them to us so they go back on our rental shelves.
I've finished planting detonator. We have less than 2 minutes.
It entertained this guy, and with VHS, that was a tangible thing he could do it to.
My friend lent me a tape of a movie he taped for me recently. I went all the way to the end of the tape just to see how many layers of things that he taped over and what were they, and you kind of catch the tail end of a movie from Cinemax or like a music video or like this TV show all the way to something that was taped originally from like 1987, and it was really great just to see who this guy know, like what he was watching like for the past 25 years.
Lawrence of Arabia is one of my favorite films. And when I go see a print of that in the theater, every scratch, every break, every place you see a splice, there's a story behind that. Something happened with that movie. Something happened with that print when it was shown to an audience. And there's something about that that, to me, is really kind of special because you know that print's had some life and some legs on it. VHS could do that.
It's almost like VHS has a built-in hit counter in that, like, you can tell how many times it's been copied by the way that it looks. And so you knew that when you got a tape, if you were in tape trading, like, the shittier it looked and the worse it sounded, you just knew it was going to be gold, because that meant that 10 people before you had copied it and thought that it was funny enough or great enough or weird enough to make a copy and then pass it to their friends who thought the same thing. So it was like this vetting process, you know, where this like distillery of images or something, so that by the time you got it, it was like potent and, you know, going to get you high.
Priest is bad, man. Priest is #1 in heavy metal, man. And then who comes next? Iron Maiden, man. What would you say if you saw Rob Halford right now?
I'd jump his bones.
What do you think? What do you like about him?
He's great, man. He sings great. Group's great.
How about Doc?
Great. Excellent.
Are you fucked up?
Half and half.
The South Park Christmas special. I never had a copy of that, and somebody I knew had it, and they were like, "Really? You don't have a copy? That's crazy. Everybody has a copy of this." And so I was like, "Well, make me a copy. That would, you know, just come on. Everybody has it. Give me one." I remember the guy being like, "Well, what do you have for me?" And that was the first moment where I was like, "Oh, that's right, tape trading."
The Winnebago Concepts and Engineering Departments have developed a multifunctional bathroom. Privacy, I don't even know what the fuck I'm reading. I wonder what the fuck the real dialogue is. What the fuck is this thing? All of the windshield, for fuck's sake.
I gave that guy a collection that I had gotten from somebody else that had Winnebago Man on it, that had Larry Williams, it had Jesco, it had the Jackass Pilot, the best of the worst of Star Search, which is really awesome. And I got the South Park Christmas special.
Dude, why? Don't put the magic hat on the snowman. Why? Because if you do, he's gonna come to life. Cool. No, it's not cool. My sister in Minnesota put a hat on a snowman and it tried to kill her. Fuck him. Let's do it anyway. Yeah.
I decided to get in this business. One, it was economics. I didn't have really a job. I was working at a porno theater. I just had a son. What am I going to do with my life? So the very first thing I did was the obvious. I took out a little ad, 30 titles, Mexican horror titles, and some other obscurities. Ran that ad for a couple months. And I remember how it happened. First week, I got like $500 in the mail. I was like, oh my God, make my copy, send them out. And then next week, $1,000. The next week, oh my God, this is insane. So I quit my job. And I started being a bootlegger.
This is before the internet. You'd read someone's ad in a magazine and you would respond and you would write down what you had and what he had, and you would trade and you'd make a copy, and it was usually bad 4 or 5 generations later, but you'd still get to see the movie you wanted. And what started happening as I started to get more and more extreme type of films is things would be taken by customs.
But it was really funny because he got this checklist and it said, your product has been seized by Canada Customs. And I remember twice I ordered tapes that got seized at the border. And one of them was necrophilia box was checked.
If you were ordering a movie that was banned or prohibited, you would have the guy tape like episode of All in the Family for like the first 5 or 10 minutes. And of course, you're not going to have the tape labeled Degradation of the Shit Eaters Volume 6 or something like that. He's going to put, you know, All in the Family reruns or something like that. That was a pretty solid trick.
To me, it wasn't offensive in any way because these films are impossible to find. And what they were doing was helping spread these movies and getting them out to people to actually see them.
I think that's why in the DVD market in the beginning you were seeing large units of things move, because they could go to a convention like this and say, oh, okay, those guys were moving that many bootlegs or that many trades amongst them. It's a safe bet to put out a nice remastered copy. But I think it was an important time, and a lot of movies were discovered by trading.
And in the case specifically of Dead Next Door, there was such a long window of time from the time it was made to the time it actually came out that it was bootlegged a lot. But it benefited the movie because everybody found out about it that way. We didn't have to go out and do a bunch of publicity. The publicity came to us.
海賊版の問題はね、今でも結構大変な問題で、今やっぱり中国とかかつて台湾とか、建物は全部海賊っていうさ。でやっぱ50円ぐらいで売ってんだよね。出てってぐらい安いわけ。アイスクリームより安いんだからさ。おにぎり1個分でさ、2本買っちゃうとかさ。
アダルトビデオの著作権なんかも誰もまともに取り合ってくんないんですよ。それを考えるともう本当にいたちごっこの世界なので、そういうものはもう許せないですよ。許せないですけども、あるものだとして認識してやってますね。やっぱりね。
It's kind of funny, you know, I'm dealing with these companies. I think they know, maybe they don't, but I feel kind of, I maybe bootlegged some of their stuff in the past, and now I'm dealing with them on a professional level, playing the movies in the theater. But these guys all know. I mean, any guy that's going to be hypocritical and say, you're bootlegging Cannibal Holocaust, well, the first time he saw Cannibal Holocaust was via pirate tape.
And talk about cruelty to animals. McDonald's has to be on top of the list. I mean, when you think about those poor little McChickens walking around without their McNuggets.
I think the appeal of this type of material that VHS definitely encouraged and helped spread, these viral videos, are that they capture something authentic that wasn't meant to be captured.
We finally got to the point, I think, in the last 5 years where just everything truly is ours now. Where when you put something out there, I'm sorry, it's not yours anymore. It's everyone's.
Before, you would have to, and in a way it was patriarchal and it was like problematic because you would have to wait for someone else to approve of what you were saying and presenting and have to go through that whole dance. But in that, there was a pre-selection process. And so that by the time something got to a screen, you knew that someone thought that it was worth something.
You look at YouTube and you're like, I love cat videos. I could spend a good portion of, and perhaps I do spend a good portion of my day watching cat videos. Cat videos have always been important. If you look at what people were shooting on film for home movies in the 50s and 60s, they were filming their cats.
But I think the incredible pressure now is to understand what it is you need to watch, and the orthodoxy comes really from what other people are clicking into, and then the question is, well, how do they find that? How is that discovered?
っていうふうにリアリティの基準がちょっと変わってきてますよね。でそのことはこれからの映画作りの表現に重大な影響を与えると思いますね。YouTube の方が逆にリアリティを作ってしまってる。その基準を無視はできないっていう状況になってるんじゃないですか。
Dwayne, I was wondering, what fashion trends do you follow?
Well, I usually look in magazines or see what the kids at school are wearing.
Dwayne!
Already you can see a remix culture, appropriating different clips to do different things with it, besides just what the producers in a centralized industry such as Hollywood or the New York television networks do with it.
I don't watch stuff that I hate and then put it on there, which I think a lot of people think for everything is terrible. They think like, oh, it sucks, so you got to put it up there. It's like, no, I don't want to put anything up unless it's incredible.
Crack cocaine.
Coke.
And this is what you smoke it in.
It's awesome. Makes you feel good all over.
Yes, some of the stuff we do doesn't show people in the best light ever, but they did produce that stuff to begin with. We're just spitting it back out.
I'm Fabio.
I'm Mickey Dolan.
I'm Al Michael. I'm retarded.
Hey, Toby, you the man.
Oh, Mr. White, I'm just a tire.
There's so much undiscovered stuff still. How can we share that with everybody? Let's just organize this as best we can, because that's really all it is just kind of taking control over those tapes.
Well, that's right, little buddy.
Oh my God.
So it's fascinating that these technologies, leapfrog each other, building new uses, and none of this is driven by people really anticipating what the new use will be. It's almost like you have to build a machine and then see what people do with it.
There's really no need for archaic things like cable anymore, stuff like that. It's like, why would you do that when you can literally watch whatever you want at any time?
I guess there are people that are collectors and put things on their shelves, and it reflects who they are, and I think that that's a loss. But I think that there'll be virtual ways for us to collect, and we're going to figure that out.
I'm sure studios are really excited about the way things are going, about the fact that there's not going to be physical media.
I mean, the Walt Disney Corporation, is made up of lovely people. That whole idea of the Disney Vault, we're putting the Lion King back in the Disney Video Vault, so you can't buy it again for a while. It's a completely artificial sense of scarcity designed to create a completely artificial sense of demand.
Studios are now completely dominating what is available to you, and they are completely in control of what you can have. And they can give that to you, and they can take that away like a malevolent god.
It infuriates me. The notion of somebody else having control over my access to media in general bothers me. When I read this story about the Kindle and how all the people who had purchased, it couldn't have been a more ironic title, but George Orwell's 1984, woke up one morning because of a licensing disagreement, it was gone. It just wasn't on their Kindle anymore. That's terrifying. That is absolutely not in the spirit of purchasing something. That word becomes meaningless at that point. You don't purchase digital media. You rent it, and it's at their pleasure. The reality is, all physical media is going away. All of it.
On a business standpoint, if it takes off, it'll be good for us because we won't have manufacturing. We won't have to do all those extras and the supplements and the interviews and the documentaries and the paper, the labeling and the shipping. So you think about it, and it sounds like a great idea. But then it kind of goes against what I like and, collecting.
With Netflix, with torrenting, it's hard to want to go out to a video store. Like, it's hard for me at this point. I don't really go to the video store as much as I like to anymore.
This is where we keep most of our videotapes. Sadly, I had to the other day moved them all to make room for Blu-ray. So Blu-ray.
If DVD was a short lifespan, Blu-ray is going to be like gone before you know it. It's already stupid.
Honestly, the primary reason to keep something physical is nostalgia.
We'll continue to put out physical media until the plants close.
My 18, 19-year-old students who love film, are passionate about film, seem to have no interest in having a video collection.
You can't begrudge this generation not wanting to collect this because it's too accessible.
It seems to be splitting down the middle to people that are going to go to the ends of the earth to keep the old stuff, the old ways, and then it's the other side that are just, they don't want anything anymore. It's got to be non-physical media that they can keep on a hard drive or just have it streamed to them, forget about it. And then the other guys that are going to build a shrine.
I have more than enough to keep me busy for 10,000 lifetimes. For future generations, I don't give a fuck about those people.
I love streaming as a technology. I'm going to hang on to my DVDs. I'm going to hang on to my Blu-rays. Just as much as I love iTunes and Spotify, I still have a record player because I like it.
日本はアメリカほどストリーミングっていうのが普及しているわけではなくて、比較的まだ DVD なんかのパッケージメディアが多い国だとは思うんですけれども。
People stopped buying video as soon as the content was cheaper and even easier to consume. And then we found out that the masses don't care about bonus features or optimum quality. It's only the collector market that does.
Netflix Instant is a really important step towards what the studios want. And I think what you'll eventually do is you'll have a pipe that comes into your house, and you will subscribe to whichever libraries you want. The MGM library, the Warner Brothers library, the Sony library. That's where we're headed. We're headed towards no money on their end in terms of physical units.
I mean, I imagine it's just all going to be on access eventually. And,
well, technically it already is, but some people don't want to admit it.
だからそんななんかこれがゆくゆく残るものになるみたいなことも全く考えてねえし、ビデオ屋でなんかもう開店してもうそこでもう終わっちゃうようなものぐらいの意識しかなかったから、あんまりなんかそういうこの V シネマを残そうみたいなことを考えてやってるような人って
今でも DVD になってない作品とかもあるから大事に VHS を撮ってあるんですけど、やっぱりこう私の中では大事なコレクション、自分の出た作品も含めて。
We're talking about VHS, but I only have videotapes because that's the way that I can find that movie. And if that came out in a different manner, like if that was available on a DVD or only on Blu-ray, I'd watch it.
I mean, now that I'm a film programmer, I'm more aware there's films where the filmmaker doesn't have any other materials. So essentially, until somebody finds a negative, finds a print, the best source in the world is a VHS, which is a little scary.
Video preservation is the nightmare in the closet that no one is talking about. Everybody likes to talk about film preservation. Martin Scorsese's out there, proclaiming the love of film and all this, but in actual fact, everybody knows that in Scorsese's back closet, he's got a lot of videos that are just a hot mess. I think that most people that really started collecting in the 80s probably going to see at least 2 out of 10 tapes begin now, 30 years on, 20 years on, to really not be playable. And maybe that's one of the reasons that nostalgia for video is going to be so incredibly poignant, I think, going forward, is that we're going to have such a great statistic of loss.
It seems like with each iteration in home video technology, we lose a chunk of the library of amazing films that are out there.
I don't understand how people can ignore VHS because there's just such a huge percentage of movies that never came out any other way. So if you're even like a casual fan of movies at all, you should have a VCR. You should be actively watching stuff on VHS.
There are hundreds and thousands of movies that never made the jump to DVD. I think probably a lot of people would think that the fact that it never jumped to DVD is indicative that they were poor quality to begin with.
No matter what genre of film you're interested in, you're going to find things that are only on VHS within that realm of interest. So if you like silent film, there's going to be some obscure Russian short that's only on some tape on a back shelf of a video store. If you like 80s comedies, there's going to be hundreds and hundreds of just the most ridiculous boner jams that you can only watch on tape.
To select what you love by its format cuts you off from something that you might enjoy more than anything you've ever seen in your entire life.
I think that stuff stands outside of my objections. That's very important, that there is a document of all those countless hours of rare stuff in any form whatsoever, even VHS.
When it struck us that other people could have fun watching movies that were only on video, we started Video Hate Squad. And we had our first show, and we got the whole audience there. We have a VCR on the stage, so we always put the tape in the VCR in front of the audience, so they're all part of that moment. Even better than that is that all over the world there's other people that did the same thing at the same time, because there's this kind of this zeitgeist where people are realizing, hey, there's a lot of value in this stuff that we've been ignoring.
mean, for example, a movie like Deadly Prey, but I don't think anyone even knew it ever came out. It was meant to be this fleeting thing. Let's just fill these stores with content. We don't have to worry about their theatrical releases or not. What they didn't realize is there were so many works of art. That's an incredible, incredible film. And when we played a VHS copy, because it's not available on film or DVD or anything, there's no other format. We had Ted Pryor come and we had to talk with him. And it was just incredible to see this movie with a bunch of people and just realize no one knows what's going to happen next. This is completely unpredictable.
I knew that VHS collecting was kind of becoming popular again. The House of the Devil, you got to get a lot due to that. Just the fact that a new movie was released on VHS, it started making me think about a lot of the films like this. You know, I had a modest VHS collection, but this kind of kickstarted it for me a lot.
They're finally going, okay, well, there's people who have this kind of interest, so let's market to them as well.
The revolution is still evolving. I think, you're making a documentary about videotapes right now. I think that there's a huge VHS resurgence. For example, Mondo putting out all these new videotapes that are selling through hundreds of copies in a 2-hour period. Clearly, there's still a market out there for videotapes.
The boom that's going on today with the tapes, I really just don't get it. I'm 40 now, I'm seeing these tape prices going for $400. It makes me regret getting rid of some of the stuff that I had at one time, you know. Could be putting my kids through college, I don't know.
When LPs had a resurgence in the 90s, what was amazing about that is it didn't go away. Like, there's still stores that really just exist to sell records. But I don't think that VHS is going to have that same permanent resurgence.
You can make arguments for, the quality of a vinyl and why that presents a better experience of the music. The VHS, it's never going to be a better experience of the raw materials. It's just the qualities associated around it.
So I think that there's a nostalgic need to sort of go back and also reevaluate.
It was in 2006 when History of Violence came out on VHS and kind of marked the end of everything. That was the last widely distributed film on VHS.
My friend Zach called me and was like, hey, we're thinking about getting some VHS tattoos because they just stopped making VHS.
And I'd never had a tattoo before, but it took me less than 2 seconds to be like, yep, I'm with you guys. I'm getting that right there.
We all got ours a little differently. Like some got Never Forget on it, some got the year that it started and ended. I just wanted just the video, just on its own, just the cold, just the nice, it just looks so strong and great.
And people ask me all the time, they'll be like, what is that on your arm? I'll just show it to them and they're like, no, what is that? And I'm like, you forgot, obviously.
When you find some of these stores that have big box videotapes, you know there are going to be mutant owners who have been surrounded by these relics for so many years. And they are part of their life story, and I am slowly trying to drain them of them.
And like an archaeologist, every once in a while, you'd pull all these tapes out, and at the very bottom, covered in dust. Literally, your hands would be just caked in this dust. You pull out a video that's, pure gold.
If I see a flea market, a swap meet, an antique store, a Goodwill, it's getting stopped and it's getting pillaged. That entails looking in the phone book, looking on the internet, literally driving up and down every single street that I see. I've driven probably a 3-hour drive radius every direction.
And honestly, I think that is what the legacy of the VHS era is. It's made us all much more film savvy. That it's kind of made people much more aware of other movies beyond the ones that were fed by the richest companies.
ホームビデオ、その VHS がなかったら、私はきっと今女優をやっていないので、ホームビデオから、ジェニファー・コナリーという女優を愛し、そして自分がホームビデオの中というか。
The fact that it made accessible all these generations of films which were utterly gone, just gone. No one could see them, The studios kept them in the vault. Sometimes they got rid of the negatives, didn't think it mattered anymore. Home video restored all that for us, and perhaps not always in the greatest looking form. Perhaps not always the way we remembered it, but it was accessible.
I don't think there's any lasting impact. I think it's been just a passing parade. It's like, what's the lasting impact of radio? Right? It got us to the next step.